afternoon session. We've got our first panel, which is the changing face of engineering, what teams need now. So welcome back to our stage, our moderator, Anna McDougall.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'd like to bring our panelists up first. We'll have everyone introduce themselves once they're up here. They can do it better than I can anyway. My name is Anna McDougall. I'm your moderator for this session. I'm Director of Engineering Operations for Blinkist as of 3 weeks ago. So it's very nice to be here with my brand spanking new title. And I'll be leading this session today, which is the changing face of engineering. So what teams need now. Before we get started, it would be nice if we know who we are going to be speaking with today. So would we like to start with Christina?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Cristina Turbatu, CTO of Casumo. It's an online gambling company, and have been working in startups, scale-ups, corporations, and mostly in this industry. I'm Romanian originally, and I live in Malta.
Hi everyone, I'm Aga Mihalik, and I've been over 20 years in software engineering, originally a programmer, mobile phone programmer for Nokia phones, and the last 3 years I have been on a co-founder journey, and I'm also CTO of Checturio, and Checturio delivers software for automation using AI in transportation. And yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yes, Martin, lucky last.
Yeah, I'm Martin, VP of Platform Engineering at 1K5. At 1K5, we are pushing the energy transition forward by installing solar systems, PV, heat pumps, and batteries. And we are connecting the dump devices in a smart way so that we reduce the energy bill for our customers and that they produce less CO2. And in this part, in the making the dump devices smart part, I support our, or my team support our engineers with cloud infrastructure, developer productivity topics, and data platform topics.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so let's jump straight into the first question, which is basically, you know, the changing face of engineering, what teams need now. So let's take this now word and say, what is different now from, say, 5 years ago? So what are some of the changes you've seen that you think are real, concrete changes and not just like a buzzword, for example? And Agra, I might throw to you first, if that's all right.
Sure. So I think that due to the release of LLMs like OpenAI, it changed, first of all, the process of hiring, because the process itself has become very difficult to actually filter out the right candidates, to identify which CVs are generated. And so it has been very, very difficult since this change. So I think hiring changed. And in daily work, I think it changed for positive, because you have different development environments like cursors, so you can have support, you can check many things and also look, I don't know, with perplexity, what are the common solutions or architecture proposed. You can find easily some papers you are looking for. So I think it has changed in that sense for better.
Mm-hmm. So it's in terms of, I suppose, both on the hiring side, some negatives that you've seen, some negative impacts in terms of making it harder to...
Yeah, it has become, at least for me, very tricky. I experienced some candidates also cheating, that we try to use kind of programming tests that are, you know, difficult to cheat, but I had some experiences that I thought, you know, it's like a network problem, and then the parts of the code were appearing, you know, it was copy-paste, right? But it was like, you know, but then you ask the candidate questions and they say rubbish. So, I mean, you can figure that out, but it has changed. It also happened that some candidates confirmed that they used only ChatGPT to actually solve the questions if they were given, which I find for like really basic programming skills not acceptable. So we rejected such candidates.
Okay.
Maybe there are different opinions, and but yeah.
Yeah, I have to admit I have a strong personal bias here because I actually created a technical interview structure based around AI and based around LLMs. So if anyone's interested, you can Google the McDougall method. Yes, I named it that. And you'll find a very long blog post about my opinions there, so I won't say them today. But I'm interested to hear what our other panelists think about this. Have LLMs changed what teams need and what we as their leaders need?
I think they clearly need more context, more guidance. So, like, what changed is, from my point of view, is the speed, right? It's the speed in writing, but also like code generation, and code pops up everywhere suddenly. Like we have, I don't know, customer care teams writing code, right?
Yeah.
Like those kind of things. And with that, it's just crucial that we steer this speed in the right direction and have the right guardrails and a good foundation, a good platform also, not just for the humans, but also for the context for the AI to produce the right things. And it adds a shitload of complexity and makes a lot of things worse, I feel like. But overall, I feel like managing it in a good way can make organizations way more productive if done right.
Okay, so what does doing it right look like? How do we give that context or give that to the engineers?
Like giving them enough freedom to experiment and also do things, but also seeing like where are the boundaries, right? Like, I mean, like sticking with the customer care example, right? I mean, there could be like, okay, no, like customer care has no clue, we can't allow them to write code, right? I think that's the wrong approach. I think it's okay to say like for internal things, like moving data from A to B or making sense out of data. And so it makes total sense that even a working student in customer care can make a good impact, right? But is it about, I don't know, a payment solution for end customers, right? I think there are like other measures to taking. Like, I mean, code should be, is 100 times more often read than produced or written, so it is really crucial that the human has an eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Christina, what are your thoughts? What's different now from 5 years ago?
So definitely the new technology and the speed of which it runs out has had an impact. On the recruitment, I personally want to challenge the new candidates to use AI, but they need to understand exactly what is there and why, and critical thinking, because we are going into that direction. It's going to become, as far as I see it, it's going to become a literacy kind of thing. We have tried that approach of giving freedom to the developers to explore AI, and especially with people who have been in engineering for many years, I found that it was very hard for them to go towards that path. So we created a very structured program with help and like guidance and measurements that help them understand if they can speed up or improve their experience. And also it helps the management, the rest of the management team. I think these new technologies have changed the perception that, oh, now everything can be done with AI. Why do we need employees? We can just cut half the workforce and do the same things. And I think doing those programs, measuring them with KPIs, really helps bridge that conversation and conflict between, let's say, the CFO and the CTO on what's the actual value, what's the realistic impact. Not all industries are the same. You might use AI to develop very fast in a startup from scratch. Yeah. But if you have a 12-year-old platform in a highly regulated environment, what's the actual impact? So that's what we do, and that's what I think the biggest change is. In our domain, we used to, a few years ago, it felt like you're an untouchable god. Everyone wanted developers. I remember recruiting went 20, 30K up for the same level of developers from one year to another. Was hiring fully remote, and yet still it was very high. And everyone had very, very high standards from their employers. And I think AI, with all the redundancies that happen in the big companies where you thought, like, I go into Google, I can just stay there and have a nice experience, those even started to be risky and uncertain. So I think from that perspective, it changed a lot our environment.
I'm interested to bring this back to the idea of what the teams need, because we're talking so far, and it's a very interesting conversation, about what we do and how we see things, but we also have to be aware the engineers are hearing these conversations happening, right? Like they're not just staying in their bubbles, they're hearing these conversations around, are we going to need engineers in the future? And CFOs, as you say, saying, let's just get rid of employees and use AI. And so my thinking then about the employees themselves and what the teams actually need in this environment is that maybe they need some reassurance or they need some direction. Do you have any thoughts there about like how we can give the teams some sense of security or some changed expectations perhaps, or something that helps them in this turmoil, so to speak?
So I think that the human interaction and presence, face to face, has become even more important with that aspect, because using those tools, it's, all time spent on your own. It's kind of, sometimes maybe you don't need this solution because the problem is sort of different, but you haven't discussed it thoroughly. You also maybe feel overwhelmed emotionally. So I think this team spirit and even if team members are working remotely, so having occasionally meetings face-to-face are important. And from the perspective of a CTO or engineering lead, it's important to actually coach, so actually to talk and listen to the needs of the developers. I think this has changed, and in my view, it could affect the mental side of their being. So I think those are the aspects, because the other aspects, okay, so the tools are there, everyone can read. I mean, first you can write what to look for, then you can look for it, then you can use it, and done, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that you are still a human being, and the result may be still not good if you simply copy, right? Because there's the context, there's also your performance if you feel well. So I think this presence and the leadership has become of an essence in that aspect. But when it comes to, I don't know, filtering out or laying developers off, which I agree, but this is also the reason why hiring is so difficult, because there are people that have been laid off, but unfortunately it was a vibe for becoming a programmer. So many people had become coders, but they were simply coders, just coding something without understanding exactly the architecture, deployment, consequence of this code, or even the client-server communication. And now it's a natural filter to actually filter such candidates out. However, it makes hiring difficult because
how do you
have hundreds of candidates, and globally, obviously. Huh?
Correct. Martin, you look like you're dying to say something, so I'll throw to you. I'll throw to you. It's okay. Go for it.
Yeah, I just thought about something that I think many of you face at the same, like that the group of engineers is actually quite diverse when it's about this topic, because I feel like there are many that are more reluctant and more like, yeah, it's a hype, I don't want to jump on it, and others, they are on the top of the wave. And I think the challenge is to get those two groups together. There's a lot also in between. And what we did is we have many different chapters, like around security and so on, like to exchange, but we created a new one for like AI development specifically, to bring those those groups basically together and share knowledge, and from this also develop like guidelines as suggestions, basically bottom up, to see like, okay, what are the suggested tools and what is a no-go, and bringing and distributing knowledge as well to the teams, and that was so far quite successful. And I saw many people like just months ago where like, no, I won't touch it. It's like I hear things like it's bad for the environment because like the company I'm working in is like, hey, it's like producing more CO2, and like people that are now using it, right? And the other way around, also people that were like on the top of the wave are more like, yeah, hey, maybe in this space is also already some boring tech, that is like 4 weeks old, I don't know, that is also makes more sense to use than always the latest thing.
I'd also be interested, just while you're talking, you're in platform engineering. When I think about the last 5 years, I feel like that's another area that's changed quite a lot in the last 5 years, and also kind of coming into that is the concept of developer experience as like a thing that we should be focusing on, a thing we should be enabling a bit more than previously. Do you have any thoughts there on how things might have changed?
I feel like the challenge is the same. It's just the ballpark is the same, but I think the game is getting more complicated because there's just way more tooling, way more code, way more faster speed, and so it's just even more complex and more crucial to have a solid foundation, right? And I think even small startups, when they start with like 20-ish engineers, should think about what are common problems that like all engineers have, and somehow get that out of their head and centralize it, right? And I think that doesn't really change. It's just that the problem is getting bigger with like more tools,
layers.
more like, yeah, exactly.
Okay, nice. We'll go into this hiring topic because I want to move away from AI a little bit, which is, and there's a great question here from Irina, so I'll throw to it, which is, which engineering skills are becoming obsolete the fastest in your organizations? So what skills maybe were more crucial 5 years ago that now you're like, okay, that's less important to us?
I could take it. I mean, the problem with the question is that my organization isn't that old, so we don't have that. But I feel like when I think a bit more like in my previous roles, we had way more also those kind of operational click-offs, kind of system engineer roles. I think this will like slowly die out, I would say, and it's way more. I think we ask way more engineers to understand business than years ago. I feel this is for me a big change. Like in the past, it was way more about the tech skill, and now it's a lot about, hey, you want to tackle a technical challenge. Does it somehow increase revenue, reduce risk, or make it more efficient for us, right? If not, then we don't talk about it, right? This is like really something that changed, that engineers have to answer those kind of questions, I feel.
Any other thoughts?
I think tech stack is changing faster. So, I mean, we actually are not hiring for direct technologists that we are looking for, but more for attitude and skills and ability.
Yeah.
Because maybe this technology, we decide to use different technology. And I think for many years, it had been like, you had Java, or I don't know, there are even some ancient technologies like Perl, or I don't know, PHP or something. And people were specialized in that field, and they, worked in that field. And if you were looking for somebody, you knew, okay, he or she needs to have experience many years in this technology.
And they are a PHP developer, like that's the column, so to speak.
And I think it's no longer valid. And the most important skills are problem solving and critical thinking. And ability to learn. So I think those are three from my perspective.
I totally agree to that, and I think that also is, from my point of view, against this, what I read a lot, hey, we don't need junior engineers anymore, like we don't hire them anymore, because like because AI can do the job, but no, I think a junior engineer brings so much to the team if this person is able to ask the right questions and brings curiosity and learns. I think that helps the whole team so much that I love to hire juniors.
Yeah. And energy. Don't forget.
Yeah. So like, I think just what changed is that those kind of like soft skills are becoming more and more important for juniors.
Christina, how do you feel about that?
So from my end, many years ago, it was enough to be, as your guys are saying as well, specialized into something, and you were extremely good at it. But that alone is not working anymore in most of the companies that I've seen. And the need for adaptability is critical. I see engineers that are extremely good, yet they still really struggle nowadays to keep up, to understand the architecture of the business. They always used to take care of their functions or their environment. So soft skills, I think, are developing, while being able to be fully focused on code is not that common anymore. You need to be able to deal with people, problems, context changing.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing, I think someone mentioned it yesterday, this idea of bringing engineers out of this little like engineering sitting in your basement with a computer kind of bubble and more into the business world, into understanding how teams work, understanding how product works, and becoming real product engineers instead. And that seems to be the direction things are going in. One of the questions we had was also about how we balance this. So obviously, there still has to be some technical skill involved when you're hiring an engineering team. So how do you balance these requirements? Yes, you need to have some technical skill, but we are also looking for this, this, and this. How do you find that person? How do you balance those things in a team, even if not in an individual? It's a big question.
Like it depends a bit on the problem the team needs to solve. Like some problems are more like technical, I don't know, IoT, something where you need like more like also a nerdy character, I would say. But then I think it's good to have translators in the team. Like that's how I call them for myself. Like people that are able to do to build the bridge to the business and do the translation and help not just with words, but also with like dashboards, data, tools to does the translation. Like an example that comes to my mind is talking about cloud costs. Right? Most of you might have been in the situation. Like, are our cloud costs high or not? Like, depending who you ask, right? CFO will always say it's too high. But like adding context to it, business context to it, makes it really understandable and translates to both sides. Like, and with cloud costs, that is like, what does the cloud cost mean for a business? So how much does one customer does us cost in cloud cost? Like breaking it down to the paying customer, our all cloud cost helps to really have the conversation. Should we invest in more efficient use of the cloud, or is it better? No, it's fine, and we can move on and produce more value for the customers, right? So, and those kind of translators you need. From my point of view.
So when you're hiring on a team, then are you considering, okay, here are the skills I already have, and where are the gaps? Like, who can add something? So rather than a culture fit, looking for a culture add, like who can add something to this team that can bring us this better balance, I suppose?
I think that for me, the most important is to hire good engineers and smart ones, but also with motivated attitude. And those are regardless, if they have complementary skills or not. So I think this remains for me always the most important point. And with the different skills, I think this requires experience and leadership from the leader to actually recognize everybody has different skills. So, for example, one likes to the security topics, the other, for example, documentation, the other does things quickly, but maybe not too thorough. So you have to actually balance out and plan, right? But obviously, it depends on technology type of application. So if you have backend, I think still there are some skills of like people with common sense, with some fundamental knowledge. Because there was here a question which I disagree that with the introduction of AI tools, you don't need fundaments of computer science. I find it the opposite, because you can create really trash and you can have problems, and exactly the memory management and all those aspects, they are now more important. But how to balance out all of this, I think the whole situation is very difficult, because it's not easy to find good developers, so you always meet some compromise, right? I mean, as a startup, we are not paying like big enterprise companies like Google or Microsoft. So for sure, we have to win younger people, right? And this has some consequences, because it's not necessarily they have such a long experience as the other ones. So, but I think, the most important are really their attitude, and that you can have trust. To them.
I mean, I think obviously you're talking about a real unicorn if you're talking about someone who has a deep technical expertise and they're interested in dashboards and the business side, and they understand, the deep fundamentals, and they also like love modern tools, and they're great with people, and they understand product, and they can lift a team. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's you're asking, as you say, you're never going to find like this perfect person who fits this without paying them some kind of crazy salary. So we're always going to be talking, I guess, about which of these things is most important to us in that current moment. Does that work with your experience as well, Christine?
In my experience, what has worked is creating restructuring the teams around product areas, which allows them to understand the business. And second, I'm trying to build very diverse teams intentionally, from both sex, nationalities, personalities. And I think having that diverse environment actually creates such a better product. Then the other thing, I talk to them like adults with absolutely full transparency, and creates that sense of trust that even if things are good or bad, there's nothing hidden. We can work through solutions together. So that safety is very crucial. And the last part is, with diverse teams, I try not to create silos, because sometimes those develop. You have this person who's very good at that, and that person who's very good at that. It's great, but I create an environment and a framework where there's a lot of intentional knowledge sharing. So diverse, and then knowledge share, so that people can learn and grow.
Yes, Martin.
I just thought about two things, and like that build on top what you were saying is one. I think having, like, I'm coming back to my platform topic, I know, but having a really good foundation, a platform, so that the teams actually have headspace to think about business is really important, to really understand what are the common problems every team is struggling with, like, I don't know, spending days on setting up this alert, or I don't know, like those things are like not in their head, so that they actually have space for it and don't have to have all those crazy skills. This is one thing. And the other thing is mistakes that I made in this building these teams is really also in the fast-paced environment where we hired like a lot of engineers and building a lot of teams. It takes like at least half a year until you actually know what your cultural add is that you need, because you first understand the team and understand the dynamics and understand the people in the team and know what you actually need. But that is already too late when you are hiring fast, right?
Yeah.
So, and what I think an advice, when I'm allowed to do that, is that is being not afraid to break up the team, right? And see, hey, actually, we have to change. It doesn't fit like this, right? And the cultural add isn't there. We have to break it up and see where we can move people so that the pieces fit together again, right?
Absolutely. I think that and this idea of learning and development kind of feeds into a question we have from Luis, which is, do you see a meaningful change in what usually motivates engineers? So in what is actually driving them nowadays? Have you seen any changes there?
So I've definitely seen a change in what drives them. Some of them have a high interest in understanding how their work impacts the customers, and what they actually produce, and how the business move forward. I didn't used to have that many engineers interested in business KPIs, like what churn we have, what retention rate we have. So for some, those KPIs, even if you gamify them, became super motivating. For others, what became very important is feeling that you're in a safe environment. You don't have to have the highest salary that's on the market, but you need to feel like this is a company where you will be respected from ups and downs. And there are people who value silence and focus time way more than before. With all the noise, all the meetings, especially when you work remote, hybrid, creating focus time for them became quite critical.
So in your opinion, it's kind of twofold. There's the focus time that motivates them to kind of get into the zone, so to speak. And then on the flip side, there's also understanding the value of their work and feeling that their work has a value in the business, which I think kind of answers the other question that came from Sayak about engineers preferring to be technical, and that normally business conversations frustrate them, he said, and how that can be made interesting. But you're saying you don't feel like you need to try right now. You feel like they're coming to you and asking about it more.
Some of them, but yeah, the way we do it is we literally want to gamify the KPIs. Like we set up, okay, the whole company is trying to achieve this thing. Let's build a simple UI and gamify the levels of how we can achieve that.
Nice.
PR.
Fun. Aga?
I mean, I experience the same, that the developers are interested in business KPIs, and we share them actually with the whole company.
Yeah.
And there are obviously some reasons, because obviously employees have also other incentives like shares, and they are also share the common interest, which is well-being and growth of the company, right? So it's also based because it's a startup, right? So I don't know if it's the same in a very big corporation, and I think, which is maybe it also depends on the age, but I have quite few younger engineers, and they really interested to learn. Right, so business domain, they are also excited if they learn about new customer deal and that the usage is growing. So they have a personal satisfaction, and they are also impressed by learning those topics. So it's kind of personal and professional growth for them.
Great, Martin, you look like you.
I have not much to
okay.
add. I think it's a lot around the younger folks. I feel like it's even more important the purpose. Like maybe it's a bit also my bubble. We are working in as a company, but we have a lot of like really purpose-driven engineers.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm hearing, just to kind of like sum up your thoughts, I guess, on this topic, is that what has changed is people are focusing more on the business. They're focusing more on having focus space. So when they go into the technical world, they want to be able to really go there, and then at the same time having that feeling of purpose to their work and feel like they're really contributing, which makes sense. We've got some other questions I want to go to, and there are two that are both about juniors, which are near the top. The first is how do you bring junior developers to use AI but also learn to code? So how can they develop the skill of using AI, I suppose, while still learning those fundamentals? and at the same time, how to foster a culture that welcomes juniors, despite these expectations. So I guess it's kind of a twofold question. Getting juniors in, making it a welcoming culture for them, but also developing their skills with AI and code generally. Anyone want to jump in? Aga, you look like you.
I would actually twist it and say that, at least in our case, junior developers are teaching us how to use AI tools. So they are the first, bringing the tooling, and then we are just checking if their licensing is okay, security is okay, because if you have a license, obviously there is some agreement, because you don't want to share the company code, with any AI tool. So all of this, but in my experience, it was the youngest employees that propose, and we learn from them.
Sure. So then, so let's go to the second part of that question. Then, if they're good with the AI tools, how do you then upskill them more on the engineering side if they are pulling from the AI tools more and more?
I think coding conventions, best practices, having code reviews, so that they can learn from the feedback, right?
Martin?
I think here and there we also have to admit that, also looking 2-3 years ahead, maybe the skill of really literally writing code is not something that they necessarily have to learn, right? I don't say that they shouldn't be able to understand the code, but what it means to from scratch write something, maybe it's okay that they don't learn it, right? And I think, I totally agree, what they should do is join code reviews and understand the questions that are asked in there, and use maybe also AI to learn and get answers to their questions when they are alone.
Yeah.
But learning from scratch writing code, I'm not sure if it's the right thing to invest in, to be honest.
Yeah, sure, fine. Christine, you have any thoughts here?
From my end, I agree that there should be a strict review process even of the AI-generated code. I do agree, everyone that I spoke to around the age of 20, they are way more advanced in utilizing code prompting than the older developers. But the way I would make sure that they learn how to code is actually exposing them to architectural decisions, which I don't think AI will yet be that fast in replacing, and those choices that leads to performance, like exposing them to observability, exposing them to, depending on what kind of product you have, but if you need to have high performance, high load, exposing them to the impacts of their code and making sure that they can explain, even if they didn't code it by scratch, they can explain everything that's in there.
Yeah. I'm just thinking in terms of whoever, I forgot who asked that question. If you want an actual exercise to do with the junior, something I can recommend is where you give them the ticket, just like normal, and you say, okay, go away, try to do it without AI first, just by yourself, the old-fashioned way, use nothing. Then get the AI to do it with you, and then compare and see, okay, what did I do differently? What did it suggest? I didn't think of that, or I did think of that. We did it the same way. Why? What did I miss? And then get them to do that, engage in that critical thinking of so they can reflect on their own code learning experience and see where their thinking is different. And that maybe helps them also learn about the pros and cons of using an AI tool at the same time. And so I'll go to our last question, because we've only got about a minute left, which is how you screen candidates for critical thinking, problem solving, and ability to learn and adapt. I think this was back to you, Aga. This is something you said earlier. This is what you're really looking for. So how do you find people like that?
So we are actually doing math questions and math tasks to code.
Okay.
And if a candidate is not able to pass it, I don't care what kind of CV this person has, is not going further.
Okay. Strong disagree there from me, but that's all right. But that's cool, you do you. Christina?
From my end, I make sure that there's a design task where there's no right answer. I just like to understand how a candidate is solving problems and what kind of paths and exceptions they might be thinking on the way, but I want them to be able to design simple solutions from a flow and architecture perspective.
Okay, Martin, we've got 24 seconds.
I like, it depends, like for more senior candidates, I always love to talk about the past and see where were situations where they actually didn't write code, where they avoided to write code because they guided the team in the right direction to not do something. Like those kind of stories I really like to hear, and not just talking about the really crazy technical architecture that they built, but really asking like, why did you do it? Like, did they explain it to me? What is the business impact? Blah, blah, blah. And for more junior, I think it's good to give them a challenge and then see if they like follow up on questions to really understand the challenge and those kind of things. Like for junior, you have to bring something because they usually don't have much to bring in experience, right? So you have to bring a challenge and see how they take it.
Yeah, nice. All right, I think that was actually really great timing. Thank you, everyone, for your insights. I think we learned a lot about different ways of doing things and what's changed. Please give a big round of applause for our panelists, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.